Hello and welcome to Endstep, the Upkeep Aftershow. Last week we all played the Lord of the Rings precons, except with some changes that I made, and only using the other cards that I've opened from the set. A lot of interesting things happened. For starters, it was Tommy's first win on the channel.
I did it.
Congratulations.
I did it. It just had to be, once again, a deck I didn't build.
Yeah. And it's not that Tommy's never won a game before, it's just this is the first time it's happened on camera somehow.
I've won with decks I have built before, so it's not even that anymore.
Well, and if it makes you feel any better, I think if my memory is right, this is the 4th episode in a row that I was the first person to die.
yeah.
I think. So, yeah, that doesn't make me feel great. So
No,
I kind of know how you feel, sort of. But overall, I think this was a really sweet game. A lot of fun things happened. Just a little bit of a recap, like I said. These were originally the precons that came out with the set, and then I just made a few changes here and there. As a broad overview, the human deck, I didn't make many changes to really at all, other than adding Horn of Gondor. That was the main card that I added. What did you think of that card? I mean, it seemed to do pretty well for you, Tommy.
Horn of Gondor pretty much won me the game because it allowed me to give all of my creatures that many buffs, just make them that much bigger.
Yeah.
So it won me the game. So it came in late, but man, it came in at the right time. That's a fun card. Yeah,
and then Preston, for the elf deck, I kind of leaned more into the scrying synergies because I figured that would be stronger, and the elf seemed to lean more into the scry abilities. What did you seem to think about that?
I wish I hit some of the scry stuff before I was already basically dead.
Yeah, that was rough.
I literally only started pulling some of the scry stuff like right at the very end.
Yeah, that was definitely a bummer. What do you think about the deck in general?
I like it. If we didn't do any changes, I probably would have gone with the voting side of things without like any of the changes you made to it, because I've never had a deck like that, so I think that would have been fun. But with the changes you made, I think the scrying is a little better. So,
and there are a few voting cards that are still in the deck, but there were a couple that I took out just because they're not great. But I think it's interesting that it's like this is probably the most fair Simic deck I've ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah,
So that was a nice change of pace.
Oh, for sure.
Steven, what did you think about the food deck?
Oh, I thought it was really interesting. I thought it made food tokens a lot better.
Yeah,
more
food's
usable.
not very good.
Yeah.
So this made them actually really, really good.
Like I said, the one time you would use Tireless Provisioner and choose food tokens over treasure tokens is in that deck. So
I didn't make too many upgrades to your deck either, but one of the things that I was saying originally was that I think with the upgrades that I made, Merry and Pippin as the partner pair is actually better for the commander than Sam and Frodo. In hindsight, do you regret running Sam and Frodo still, or do you think that you enjoyed playing Sam and Frodo and Merry and Pippin at the helm wouldn't have been as fun for you?
Were you going to exile them anyway when you attack them?
I can't answer that.
Then it makes no difference. No. Flavor-wise, it makes more sense for Frodo and Sam to be the commander. But also, the main reason I had Frodo and Sam as the commanders because Sam says the activated abilities on foods cost 1 less to cast.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's extremely helpful.
Sure.
I think Sam's the best out of the 3 or the 4.
Of the 4 commander options, just in isolation without the partner pair.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
He creates food tokens on combat, and then the activated abilities on the foods cost 1 less to cast.
Yeah.
I just think that's the best.
Yeah.
Especially since it is a food token deck.
Yeah, and I do think that is the deck that, without any changes, out of the box, so if you guys have not picked up any of these precons and are thinking about it, I think the strongest one out of the box with no changes is the Sam and Frodo deck. But I will say that Eowyn's deck is probably close second.
Oh, absolutely.
So for the Sauron deck, as you guys probably saw, the commander I had at the helm isn't even one of the commanders from the precon. It's just one of the Saurons from the main set. And the reason for that is that both of the precon commanders are not good, and they want the deck to go in different directions, very different directions. Not like the other ones where it's just like a little bit, like you could take it a little bit this way or a little bit that way. It still does basically the same thing. Not at all with this, because both of these are still in the 99. But Sauron Lord of the Rings is a giant beater who wants to kind of, I guess, like a reanimator kind of deck. But then there's also Saruman the White Hand, who kind of wants you to be a spell slinger deck, maybe, kind of? I don't know. So So this was the hardest one to upgrade, and it's also the slowest if you look at the mana curve. The other decks are like 3, and this one's like 4.5, something like that, so it's much slower. And it does have some big, scary cards that are really fun and evil and stuff like that, but this deck is the hardest one to upgrade, the hardest one to focus in on a strategy, and it's just a slow deck, so it's kind of a bummer. But I think all of us are a pretty big Lord of the Rings fan. Why don't you guys just go around the table and what do you guys think about Lord of the Rings coming to Magic the Gathering?
I think it's a really fun idea. It fits well with just the idea of magic and powerful wizards and powerful magical creatures and stuff.
I think it makes more sense than the Warhammer.
I'd say it.
Pre-cons.
If you ask me, I think it makes a lot more sense thematically to do a crossover like this than a lot of the other crossovers they've done. Not to say those were bad sets; some of them weren't great, but some of them were kind of cool. But this one, it feels like a much more natural fit of the two kind of themes into
the
overarching
fantasy card game with
the fantasy.
Yeah, the fantasy every other media franchise. It just feels like a much more natural fit to put these two together. So I think it works really well.
Yeah, I mean that's basically anything I would have said. So love Lord of the Rings, have them my whole life. So yeah, love seeing them on Magic cards, and it fits really well with the aesthetic Magic usually goes with.
I guess with that said, we have had other universes beyond. We did do the Warhammer. We did an episode for the Warhammer. It was the second episode of our show. If you haven't seen that was a pretty exciting game. You should check that out. So we've had other universes beyond. And we have Doctor Who coming out later this year. Do you guys like Doctor Who?
I've
never interacted with it at all.
Yeah, I've never really got into it, so I do, but I don't
any cool
know.
Singles, I might pick a couple up. That's about all.
Oh no, Liliana, no, I'm sorry.
And it looks like there's going to be some cool, like we've already started previewing and stuff like that. By the time this comes out, maybe a lot of it's going to be previewed at this point. Yeah, I also don't really know anything about Doctor Who, so it's hard for me to get that excited. But, if there's some cool cards, I'm happy to play with them. I'm not as, thrown off. It's like we're mixing franchises, If Eowyn goes head-to-head with Marnius Calgar and Curious George gets in the mix somewhere, it's not going to throw me off that much. But I guess with that said...
George might a little bit.
So if they do that, I am absolutely building
Curious George.
The monkey deck.
The man in the yellow hat.
The man in the yellow hat commander deck, at 100% building that deck.
I guess there are probably things that we for sure don't want to see in universes beyond, but let's try to stay positive. What is one maybe two things that if they made universes beyond for that you would just be ecstatic for? Because I mean the obvious one's done, right? Lord of the Rings is the obvious one. So what's next? What is there to do that would still be really awesome?
Elder Scrolls.
Elder Scrolls.
I say Elder Scrolls would be cool. I think Final Fantasy would be kind of cool.
There's going to be a Final Fantasy VII. I think it's a secret. I don't know if it's a secret lair or if it's a actual set.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. Oh, that's cool. That'll be
coming
cool.
out next year.
But I think even a full, not just limited to one game in the series, but the full Final Fantasy series. More fantasy, but it still throws some of the more future tech type stuff in there. But I think Final Fantasy would be cool.
Actual Magic has mechs at this point, so it's not that hard.
Right, exactly.
Find common ground with actual Magic cards. I wish the Godzilla ones had been cooler.
That was the test run. Are people okay with this idea? I feel like
and a lot of
the
them,
Godzilla one laid the ground.
Yeah, and a lot of those, at least the ones I remember, were just alternate art. I almost knocked her over again. Almost
all of those were alternate.
They're alternate arts of cards that already existed. So they didn't even
cards in the set.
Cards in the set, but it didn't quite feel like you said. It was sort of the precursor. It didn't quite feel the same as
maybe Kingdom Hearts would be cool. I love
Kingdom
Hearts.
That might be cool. Get into Disney with that, and that's.
Well, yeah. Speaking of Disney, the one I would want to see the most is Star Wars.
I think Star Wars could be cool.
Star Wars is kind of like Warhammer in the sense that it's
space fantasy.
It looks like sci-fi, but it's not. It is fantasy.
Yeah, it's space fantasy.
It looks like sci-fi.
Right.
And I think as long as something has a fantasy root, I think there's an argument that it can fit into the Magic aesthetic and the lore and the gameplay and stuff like that. As long as there is some kind of fantasy underlying.
I mean, we've gotten Street Fighter. Anything's on the table.
That's true. Yeah.
That's just a fighting game.
Was there anything else? You said Elder Scrolls. Was that?
Elder Scrolls would be sick. That would be really cool.
Yeah. Overall, I think that these decks are really, really sick. I'm going to be leaving them together so that we can just have the pod. I kind of regret not doing that with the Warhammer decks, but now we can just kind of keep them together. We ever want to crack them out? Anyone else else wants to play one of the other decks at some point, they can, or we can have other Lord of the Rings games in the future in our play group. Oh, I guess there was one last thing. Steven, you had a Toxic Deluge in your hand at the end of the game and didn't snap it off, even though you definitely could have.
That would have.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you regret that?
Obviously now a lot, but
Hindsight's 2020.
I mean, at the time, I was just like, we'd just be resetting, and he gains his board state so quickly, I didn't know if I could be able to do that. The last spell I played, I was hoping that like I could get it built enough to not take as much damage, and I did. I mean, mainly it was I underestimated how much power he really had on the board.
Well, I mean, the 2 cards he ended up playing just pumped his board so much.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Those were in my hand until my turn, so you couldn't even know.
So, I mean, in the end, I don't think it would have mattered.
It would have dragged the game on longer for sure, and it would have made it harder for me to win. I may not have won on that turn, but I still think there was a decent chance that I could have pulled it through.
Well, you still had Horn of Gondor and those 2 ETB guys already in your hand.
Horn of Gondor was already out, wasn't it? That was the previous.
No, but it would have gone with Toxic Deluge. I'm saying that would have been there, and then your 2 ETB guys would have been in your hand.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You
So
would
it's
have
like
had a much smaller board, but at least you would have been able to do something.
Yeah.
Right, I would have been able to do something. So like I said, I may not have won on that turn, but I would have taken at least one of them out, and then potentially won my next turn, depending on what happens.
I guess I don't necessarily have any regrets in the game other than keeping a hand without a red mana source.
Yeah, that was kind of rough for you at the beginning there.
It had a really slow start. I had things that I theoretically could have been playing the first couple turns had I had a red mana source. I think by like turn 5 or something, I had 4 cards in my hand that all required red mana. So that kind of sucked. But I think as far as playing, I think I did the best as I could, especially since
For a slow 3-color deck, I think,
Yeah, especially because this is
right.
like, it's kind of all over the place. There's a lot of stuff that kind of wants you to lean Reanimator. There's some stuff that wants you to lean Token.
Yeah, it's
kind of all over the place.
It's not a very focused deck, so
I feel like making the best as I could and utilizing my flashback spells and the cycling, the Balrog, and stuff like that, and making sure I get the most value out of my cards that I can. I think I did the best that I could. It did suck to lose my 4th game in a row first, though. Like, dying first in the 4th game in a row. That kind of sucked.
I don't think I could have done anything differently. I just wasn't getting very lucky that game.
Yeah.
I did have one thing to add about the set as a whole. I'm a little sad so you know how Partner, like there's a couple different versions of Partner at this point. I am sad we didn't get one copy of everyone from the Fellowship with Fellowship as like a partner mechanic, where you could choose any 2 people.
Oh, any 2?
Well, yeah, no, any 2 of the Fellowship is your...
That would be kind of cool. That would be kind of cool.
I guess other set-specific notes I should add is the One Ring is a terrible mechanic. Or the ring tempting.
The ring tempting?
It's a terrible mechanic.
It's a pretty confusing mechanic that doesn't do a whole lot.
The ring tempts you, the One Ring, and Bilbo's Ring.
Yeah.
I think they went a little far.
Yeah.
The reminder card itself doesn't...
It's so confusing.
The
reminder card doesn't even remind you how it works. It's confusing.
Yeah.
And then also, it's a flavor fail because it's all just kind of upside and there's no downside, which is not how the ring works.
That's not at all how that
Hey,
works.
when you draw the card, you do have to discard.
That's
and you want to have a small creature
Oh, no.
instead of a big creature.
It's not like half the decks that exist can use that as upside.
Yeah.
But I will say that I'm glad that they kind of went all in. Like, there's good commander decks. Like, these are some of the best precons that have ever been made. I think like
they were solid.
They've been knocking it out of the park lately.
Yeah, lately the precons have been really good.
Yeah, and our most recent episode was the Commander Masters episode.
Those were incredible.
Those might be the best ones ever.
I think so.
Putting price aside, because those decks are just way too expensive for the average person to pick up, especially with the markups that we've been seeing. Putting that aside, as far as just construction, they are some of the best precons. And if you haven't checked out that episode, you should, because it was one of the more fun episodes that we've done recently. So they're great Commander precons, and then we had the draft set, and making it modern legal was like maybe a mistake, but it is actually making a splash in Modern. There are a few decks that are kind of being tinkered with that might kick off, and the One Ring, it's busted. I don't know if you guys do this. That card is insane.
I've seen some Modern players going off about that card in Modern.
It's so awesome.
It's kind of wild.
I like that they kind of did everything, unlike the Warhammer was just the Commander decks, or the Doctor Who is just the commander decks, and I think they'll also have set booster or collector boosters or something. But I'm glad that they kind of went all out with Lord of the Rings, especially since it is like, if you're going to do Universes Beyond for Magic the Gathering, this is the one thing
To give a set to.
Yeah.
To give a full-fledged set to, yeah, this is the way to go.
It's also kind of reinvigorated my love for Lord of the Rings, because I've always liked Lord of the Rings, but I've really just kind of been like a fan of it through the movies.
Yeah.
And this made me rewatch the movies. I finally got to see the extended cuts for the first time. I watched them with my wife, and it was kind of her first time seeing them. And I've been trying to read the books again, and just been doing research on the lore and stuff like that. So it's been really fun to kind of get like Magic the Gathering, which is maybe my favorite hobby, pushing that love for Tolkien back into my life. I really enjoyed.
Steven's favorite Lord of the Ring thing is the Hobbit trilogy.
I feel like you have probably watched the Hobbit trilogy more than any other person on the planet.
I definitely don't think that's true. I don't think they're awful movies, but
The first one's acceptable.
First one's decent.
the Lord of the Rings trilogy is way better.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think anyone disagrees.
I was just teasing.
It's been a lot of fun to do set-specific stuff, because the thing that's kept me from doing set-specific stuff is because the Warhammer episode was such a pain. I guess you guys weren't in that, but Steven, if you remember, we had to, because back then Wizards didn't send us anything, so we had to wait till the set came out, wait for everyone to go buy it, and then wait for everyone to have the same free time together for us to get together to film the episode, and then I had to edit it.
And try to do it in a close enough time that it's still relevant.
Yeah,
because
so that was
you
a
could
nightmare.
wait 6 months, but now that those decks aren't going to be relevant in people's minds anymore. So
that's why I've avoided doing set-specific stuff, but now with Wizards of the Coast kind of helping us out in that department, I actually really like doing set-specific stuff.
Wow.
So moving forward with the show and the channel, I'd like to experiment here and there with finding different ways to do it too. Like maybe if we got enough like collect set boosters or something, then maybe we could just like build our own decks and not have to use precons or something. But I don't know. Let us know what you guys think about that. But I'm also tired. This is the last episode until season 2 officially starts, but at this point you only have to wait not even a month at this point, I think. So season 2 is coming out very soon, and we're gonna go back to what we were doing, which is every other week, except for when there's a major holiday. Every other week gonna be a new episode, and on those in between we're gonna be doing these kind of chit chats, and we have a lot of fun themes. No real repeat themes, pretty much all new themes. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and bye. We'll see you later.
Goodbye.
goodbye.